How to react after having made a mistake in communication. Hello and welcome to Communication Psychology and HR. My name is Gerhard. I'm a psychologist from Hamburg, Germany, living and working here in the Republic of Moldova for many years already. Most of us dislike making mistakes, understandably so. We have our own experiences, typically from childhood, and we fear the adverse reactions of our supervisors, caregivers, colleagues. Many managers forget that to be human is to err. That is, the human condition is such that we will always be making mistakes. And research shows that it's not the dumb or incompetent or reckless employees that make exclusively mistakes. Very often it's even the best, the most competent employees that make often very costly mistakes. So understanding this in highly risky work environments, for example in aviation, it has long been introduced into the mentality of the company that we need to create safe working environments that calculate the propensity of humans to make mistakes. So we need to include this in our calculations. We will never be able to root out all human mistakes, so we need to design for safe systems that provide buffers to the often unpredictable human errors. Now, how should we react after making a mistake? Well, punishment and self-punishment is typically not a good idea. However, many managers apply moral or financial punishment. And why? Because it's not always, and not even often so, that mistakes appear because somebody is consciously fully aware of breaching a safety instruction or making a mistake intentionally, especially in communication. Many mistakes, they are unintentional and they are an interaction of many different factors. And the human operator is only one factor, but there are also many other factors, like the work environment, the team, the professional instruction that he or she got. And punishing is very detrimental because punishing leads to low psychological safety in a team. That is, people become afraid of reporting mistakes, of acknowledging vulnerabilities, of asking questions if they see something might be unsafe, incorrect, especially if a supervisor is exhibiting such behavior. So the reporting of unsafe actions goes down, and this is a high risk because especially if we work in high risk environment, we want to have a culture and where people are comfortable of reporting questions, ideas and mistakes, because often a mistake is not the end of the world. Also in aviation, the problem is if you detect the mistake as quickly as possible, you have still a chance to repair it. For example, in aviation, lots of problems are caused not necessarily by pilot failure or how we typically think about aviation, but lots of accidents and unsafe incidents, they stem from the maintenance work. So somebody disassembling parts of the aircraft and assembling it again. And an aircraft has thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of parts, and during that process of, especially of reassembling a maintenance part, then there is a high risk of doing mistakes. So that's not a good idea to punish yourself or others for making mistakes. If you analyze mistakes, even most simple mistakes, they are a mixture of different causes, and we want to create an environment where people feel comfortable of reporting mistakes early on, or reporting if they have the feeling that they made a mistake, because sometimes it's not black and white. I, as a human operator, may be a bit uneasy about something I said, something I did, but I'm not sure if I really made a mistake. So in a safe work environment, like psychologically safe work environment, people are disposed to report this to the supervisor or colleagues and say, well, I feel I may have made a mistake with this customer, with this person. What do you think? And then the team can discuss this, and there's still the option of calling, for example, this customer back and amending that mistake. But what happens if there's a low psychological safety in your team? Such instances will not be reported, and the operator hopes everything will turn out fine. And when the mistake is being reported by an angry customer, then it's already too late. The damage is already done. Now, what are suggestions what we could do after mistakes? First, most mistakes go on unreported, as I mentioned. And if you want to reduce your mistakes, you need to encourage the people around you and your team to report your own mistakes. And that's the task of establishing trust in your team and what I mentioned, psychological safety. And you can increase this by being more open and more vulnerable. And then people will reciprocate. And also, if they feel that you are not threatening them, so if they criticize you and give you negative feedback, you will not retaliate. You will appreciate the feedback. So, and people are very keen observers. They figure out very quickly if they can tell you the truth, if they can speak truth to power or not. The second thing is always try to check during a conversation, after a conversation, what the other person has understood. It seems in some culture that this is counterproductive. There are some cultures I've been personally acquainted of, but such behavior may be perceived as insecure. You don't know what you want. You should know it. You should mind read other people. But if you're operating in an environment where misunderstandings are costly, it's worth taking this cultural risk. And maybe if it's an intercultural issue, then you should talk about this in your team and clarify this issue. Because, for example, in aviation, we cannot take the risk of losing passengers due to intercultural misunderstandings. Now, what is also very useful is that you should clarify definitions. Very often, people have different definitions about very simple things, like what's the meaning of the word near in the near future? Like, is it next week, or is it during the next 6 months? Or high quality? We are expecting a high quality document or report. What does it actually mean? And again, in some cultures, people may react annoyed if you ask such clarifying questions. But once again, the cost of not clarifying is higher than a small strange look on the face of your interlocutor. And once again, if you're working in an intercultural team, you should address those issues, so those cultural differences, so people understand why you are asking such clarifying questions. Then, of course, you may have guessed it, videotaping yourself is like checking in the mirror before leaving home. And lots of people use their cell phone, but not so many people record conversation habitually to analyze their conversation skills. And it's something different than if I speak in front of the camera now, and I'm looking into the camera and I'm aware I'm being filmed. It's different if somebody films your conversation and you forget about the camera, and then you start analyzing yourself, all the things that you habitually do that maybe are not ideal. Of course, you need to ask your interlocutor if he or she agrees to being filmed. Now, you know probably of the word brainstorming. I encourage also to engage in so-called act storming. That is, you start experimenting different communication behavior, which is not your typical habitual behavior. It's out of your comfort zone. You try to experiment with different kinds of reaction, different kinds of expressing yourself. And then if you have the camera, especially, you get feedback and you'll see maybe you can enlarge your repertoire to fit it to other people. I hope this was useful. If you want me to give a free masterclass on communication psychology for your team, online of course, if you don't happen to be in the Republic of Moldova, of course, just contact me on LinkedIn or here and we can arrange a date. I wish you much success in your communication. Please share your impressions and questions. Bye-bye.